Okay, here we go. Oh, hello and welcome to a not necessarily victorious edition of Soccer to the Max, but at least, you know that officially, the United States is now part of the 2022 World Cup. You don't have to worry about any kind of repechaje, the playoff. Costa Rica does, but the United States is qualified. Not in the spot you probably would have wanted them to. They are officially behind Canada and Mexico, qualifying in third, thanks to a 2-0 loss to Costa Rica in San Jose. The record was not broken, so both the records still stand as far as the mountains of World Cup qualifying, which is winning in Azteca or winning in Mexico for the United States, and then also winning in Costa Rica. Both of those have still not happened. Uh, it's actually quite weird considering the U.S. basically put out an A squad against the Costa Rica B squad, which was necessitated by the fact that Costa Rica had 9 players on a yellow card, and if they had any of those players, which did have 2 players that got yellow cards in this game, any of those players had gotten yellow cards, they are unavailable for that playoff game against officially New Zealand. Like we knew that was going to happen. They won 5-0 against Solomon Islands. And yeah, so that's going to be the thing. That's going to be the game that will be played in June, one of the few. So Costa Rica still has to get through that. But the United States men's national team has qualified now. We don't have to go through what happened many, many years ago. You can actually go listen or watch that, you can go listen to that podcast on YouTube. It's probably still our highest listen to watch podcast we've ever done for Soccer to the Max. Way back when, coming on just an hour, I think, after that whole debacle happened. But I'm so glad that we were talking about more brighter things on this edition of the show, Erik. I mean, obviously the game doesn't mean anything in the grand scheme of things when you look at once the World Cup starts, it doesn't matter how you made it, right?
Yeah, I mean, it only matters in a sense because now, and I explained this on Twitter, now the real chaos for the United States is the draw. Who are we going to play? And we'll find that out in very short order. Friday morning, 10 a.m. Eastern, if that's when it happens. But would you have liked to at least win, especially after being level at the half in San Jose for the first time since 92? Yes. But at the same time, as long as you're not out there getting completely embarrassed, the job would be done. Now you can take these next 8 months, have your friendlies in these next windows, sort out your 18 and your 22 for your squad, and really work from there. That's what really all this was about, anyways, making sure we can do that.
Very interesting. If there's only officially now, don't, and I mean, really, you can't add anything to that FIFA calendar. There's only 2 FIFA windows
Mm-hmm.
from now to the beginning of November 21st, when the World Cup of Qatar actually begins. Very interesting. You're not going to have this run up of a bunch of friendly games, like you normally would in many years past. As again, you're running into it's the difference between playing the tournament in June and then playing the tournament in the middle of many European seasons and everything else. So these players will be getting a lot of run-ins with their club teams, not so much with the national teams. So it will be very interesting to see how this is all going to look when these players come in. When you get to that time of the year, obviously. But let's look at I guess since we kind of have to, the game did happen. Um, like I said, the United States did play their pretty much their A team here. I mean, you're missing the players that you didn't have when you started this window, obviously, but you made the changes to basically play the same squad that you played against Mexico. You know, Acosta comes back in. Um, so Luca Del Toro goes back to the bench. You have Tim Weah come back in. DeAndre Yedlin comes back in. Um, who was the other change I can't think of right this minute? But either way, and for the first 45 minutes, they looked pretty good. They had the chances. Aside from a giveaway once again by the U.S. that allowed Costa Rica to sort of have a semblance of an opportunity, it was really the U.S. pressing and going forward and pushing for it. They had the Miles Robinson uh, hit later early on where the ball kind of came back to him and he struck it. It hit right at Keylor Navas, but a good hit from him nonetheless. You had Pepe with a shot, which perhaps if he would have thought about it, maybe you cross it back to Pulisic, who's open there and sort of front of goal instead of kind of going for the angle that you know one of the best goalkeepers in the world was going to have at that point. You had a few set pieces that were interesting that you couldn't take advantage of. 7 corners to 2 at the end of the half. I mean, you had to be impressed with that, and a 60 to 40% possession as well away from home. You know, you're not in. You know, you're again. You're going to go to Costa Rica B team, but still, I mean, it took a lot for them to come out and they really pressed them. They really felt like the U.S. was trying to come out and win this game. What did you think about that first 45, Eric?
I mean, I was honestly impressed in a lot of big moments. And as you mentioned yourself, Yedlin to Weah using, and I tweeted about this during the match, speed kills, going forward, in times in a weird way, almost ignoring the midfield, even though Yunus Musa got a lot of the ball and did some great things, really taking on players in the midfield. But it was just going up and down and noting how everything leading up to the final third was great. But as you noted, and as we've talked about, with Pepe being more of a poaching style and not really that full on number 9, I think some of those things were still missing. And had you had just those minor tweaks, that one early goal, that would have killed the game. But the fact that we still kept going forward, still really kept pushing on set pieces, couple of the second phases with corners left a bit to be desired, but the first 45, again, it was 0-0. And the result, I wasn't mad.
Yeah, exactly. And then it didn't take very long. Miles Robinson again had an opportunity off a corner with a header that then would have had some wicked pace and great angle. But Keylor Navas with a great, again, he's not one of the best goalkeepers in the world for nothing. He makes a great save. And then a few minutes later, freed one of the 2 times that I thought Zack Steffen caused issues in this game. He was it Walker Zimmerman that got beat. Just you had Vargas kind of running in behind, and he comes in and just he's first to the ball, hits it.
Yep.
Zack Steffen's kind of late to see it. It goes off his hand and into the net, and yeah, Costa Rica on the board first. And that would not be the last time we hear from them as they score again off another free kick that this time it's weird because Zack Steffen is at fault, makes a save, and then it's back to the defense again. Zack Steffen should have held on to the ball the first time.
Oh, yeah. He holds on to the ball the first time. That prevents what was a major mad scramble in the box on that second goal. Yeah. And you have a guy coming in, so right near the 6, centered himself perfectly and tapped it in.
Yeah, he made himself big on
Mm-hmm.
that second block, but then he kind of just put it back into the field of play again, which isn't necessarily what you want. And then again, Contreras is first to the ball, is able to get it in. I thought a little bit hint to offside, but they viewed it and he was not. Um, and then the U.S. had a few chances here and there, but nothing totally clear cut. Musa had a chance as well there, but unfortunately, once she had some of the subs come on, it wasn't the same. And Costa Rica would go on and win on the night. Obviously, everybody knew the mountain they had to climb. Getting 6 goals on the United States was never going to be easy. Credit again to the U.S. for not just like bunkering in and trying to make sure they didn't get 6 scored on them. They went for it. They didn't get it. And that's another game that they lose away. It's crazy to think that the only game the United States has won, and that required that heroic comeback, was in Honduras. That's it. They drew in Azteca, drew in
Yep.
Cusaclan. They
Yep.
lost here in San Jose. They lost in Canada.
Yep.
Uh, it's what was the? I feel like I miss. They lost in, or they drew in Jamaica.
I was
Should
about
have
to say,
lost.
yeah,
Should have
nearly
lost.
lost in Jamaica.
Um, well, even though again you could have said red cards for some players in Jamaica, never know, different kind of game there. But I mean, just horrid away form for this team, and where you can say, "Oh, great, you're supposed to not." You're supposed to you draw away, you win at home. That's how you get through qualifying. Well, I mean, these players are going to Qatar, which I mean, not a lot of these players in period can say they've been to as a whole, not just the U.S., but like all these players are going to be in the World Cup. But again, you're not playing these games in the United States. You're playing
No.
these games in a totally different setting.
Mm-hmm.
You're going away, and then
Yep.
I mean, I feel like there's something to be said for maybe that is really where it comes down to the all these players are young. The average age is 23. You could literally field an Olympic team with this group of players for the most part. Are you worried about that at all? Like how they have not really been able to put on good performances aside from 30 minutes in Honduras away?
Yes. Yes and no. Now, part of it is the attitude of, okay, hostile environment. You have loads of away fans at these stadia. A lot of them even more rabid than the US fans. And we've really come up a lot in that regard. You can look at the state of the pitches, you can look at the state of everything else. I think that's definitely was going to be the big thing that's going to be an adjustment, and it will still be an adjustment going forward. The one reason why I'm not as terribly worried in Qatar is, in some ways, similar to South Africa, where you had a much more neutral territory. Yes, you're still going to be dealing with your fans, your ultras from the other team, but you're playing in stadia that are going to be at the very least as good, if not in some cases better, than what you're playing at here in home soil. So there's going to be that
They're
some
brand
level
new
of
for the
comfort.
most part.
Exactly. So there's going to be some level of comfort. It's like, okay, we've played on this type of grass. We play here. We know like this and that. We can get a good lay at the land. It's not going to be at home, but it's not going to be this big, intense, us against the world kind of a situation. So I think, if anything, that could play a little bit more to the US's advantage than as a disadvantage.
I mean, how do you feel about qualifying on a loss? It's kind of weird, right?
I mean, given to myself, and I go back, and I even go back to our last few shows of that qualifying cycle in 2017. I was like, look, Don't let this sit and wait until the last minute. Don't sit and wait until the last minute because we're going to get burned. We ended up getting burned. I'm looking at this and it's like, okay, it's in a technical sense not job done. It's officially job done. That was the main focus. And it's like,
Mhm.
it's like those particular movies that are good movies but have a very, very weird ending and you're
Yeah.
frustrated. It's like one of those. You're frustrated at the ending. You wish there was a better ending. But if you look at the whole of the movie and you go back and watch it again, it's like, it wasn't that bad. I just wish there would have been more than this at the very end. Or they don't cut to black like in The Sopranos. Things like that.
Yeah, I guess very true on that. I mean, so thinking about that for a second, I mean, how do you feel about this whole qualifying cycle as a whole? I mean, credit to Greg Berhalter for sticking it out with this young group. He didn't ever take a moment to just be like, let's bring in the old guard for a spell. Like, let's bring in this guy or that guy. He stuck with those players, and then just kept bringing in more and more players to
Mm-hmm.
give them opportunities, whether it was starts, whether it was coming off the bench. He rotated a lot. I mean, to sometimes to his detriment, obviously,
Right.
but the team got through. Mission accomplished as far as that is concerned. You got the team back to the World Cup for the first time since 2014. You're going to be in pot 2 along with Mexico. What do you think will be that lasting thing when we look back at this cycle and say, I mean, obviously having that next World Cup on home soil for the most part,
Mm-hmm.
you won't have any competitive qualifying matches or whatever that you have to go through. It will be a much different World Cup, 48 teams at that point. Do you think we will look back at this positively as okay, this got this group of players ready to go for when they're 27, 28,
Yep.
29, uh, to be at their highest possible peak when you're getting to the World Cup 2026, or do you have concerns instead?
I don't really have concerns because you would have to look at this, and you brought it up perfectly, of two minds. Are they good enough, talented enough to put the ghosts of 2018 behind them for everybody? We answered that first question. Yes. Now, how they do in Qatar, expectations are going to be tempered. Yes, you would love to see a great performance, a couple of wins, maybe an appearance in the knockout stage. That's what I would be happy with. But then at the same time, while qualifying for 2022 is important, you really have to look and say, okay, this is going to be the team that's in their second, and in some players' cases, third World Cup qualifying cycle leading up to 2026. And everybody's already saying for 2026, you may not be favorites to
Well, I
win.
mean, there's no cycle next time.
Well,
It's
but
really
what
just playing a bunch of friendly games.
Right, but what I'm saying is this: it may not be a cycle for us, but for everybody else, we're sitting and laying in wait. And this is the point. This is going to be for 2026. Nobody's outright saying the US should be favored or will be favored. But if you even looked at the CBS Sports Network telecast and in the postgame, he said, could the US put themselves in a position to go the farthest the US has ever been in a World Cup? Maybe some hints at the best chance of winning a World Cup on home soil. That's definitely in Berhalter's mind right now. and getting these players
I mean,
that
if
World
you
Cup
ever are going to
experience.
have the opportunity to do so, it would be when it is on home soil.
Right. And
So,
that's in Berhalter's mind right now. And now he's looking at even these next 8 months and in Qatar itself and saying, okay, you have World Cup experience. You're going to have World Cup experience. You know what this is going to be like. We're not going to have to go and, if I'm being honest, even though it's not going to be an actual cycle, I would plot out friendlies very carefully and saying,
right.
okay, remember, this is still going to be rough and tumble. And you know what these certain teams that you're going to have go up against are going to be like. Take all of your experiences from now all the way up through 2023, 2024, etc. Accumulate this so we know what it takes to really make that run.
Very true. Very true. I mean, there's still a long ways from now to November. A lot can happen. A lot can happen for any of these teams that are going to be in the World Cup. A lot can happen for the United States men's national team. You would hope that you have not only the 4 players that are missing that have been key cogs in this cycle, but also that you have some players in a better run of form that they have been lately.
Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned Ricardo Pepi. You mentioned the number 9. I think for me, the one glaring thing that has been a thorn in my side and obviously in many others is you do not have a solidified striker for this squad. You don't have somebody that you can look to and go, okay, this is where the goals are going to come from when you don't have Crystal Pulisic firing on all cylinders. You don't have Gio Reyna, who's still kind of coming back from things. You know what you have on the wings.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can put Ferreira at a false 9, whatever, but it's like those guys that we thought we were going to be able to count on haven't. We saw Pepe have that little mini run, at Tren. He's going to be the next one. He gets this huge move to Augsburg, and then nothing. And that was the worry, was that Augsburg is not a team that generates chances. Yeah, he can play, but if he's not actually getting anything up front, is it really benefiting him? And then now it's even getting to the point where he doesn't really get a lot of game time or get games at all.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously, unfortunately for Jordan P. Falk, every time he steps on the pitch, except for that Confederation, the Nations League semifinal against Honduras, where he scores the goal. Aside from then, he's been kind of disappointing as far as for Greg Berhalter. Every time he sees him, he's just missing a chance. And that doesn't help him. That's somebody that I thought we might see in this game.
Mm-hmm.
Is why not give him an opportunity to get 60 minutes and see what you get out of him? You already know what you got with Ricardo Pepi. I don't think you needed to bring Ricardo Pepi in to play this game. Does he have good combination play? Okay, fine. Sure, he does with Pulisic and Weah up front and whoever else. But, I mean, you even know what you're getting from Ferreira at this point. I would have really liked to give PFOP an opportunity, but I understand. Greg did not do what I thought maybe he would rotate a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
Greg did not do what Costa Rica did. He just went out there and said, we want to be that first team to win. In San Jose, he put out his best team, or what he thinks is his best team that he has available, and it worked for 45 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact still remains, you're playing in a World Cup now. Somebody's got to hit lightning. Somebody has got to hit some kind of fire,
Yeah, oh yeah.
or you're going to run into an issue where you really worry about are they going to contemplate playing Christopoulos in the false nine, or is Ferreira the false nine going to be your answer because you don't trust anybody else, and man, I really hope whether it's a Daryl DK, whether it's PFOC, whether it's Sargent, whether it is Pepe at some point, somebody gets hot that you can feel like, okay, he's in a good run of form. Let's go with him.
Because all credit to Spain for, making the false nine, riding that to a World Cup win. Let's be fair. That was a one-time thing. You need, and I say all the time, you need ideally 2 strikers. I'll settle for one. One. Give me one, and we can work from there.
Yeah, it's just really concerning. You have really good players, great players even, but when you need that guy that's going to step up and coming from nowhere, when you're down in the trenches, you're grinding it out. You're playing against this team that has you every which way, which they're going to run into. Mm-hmm. Let's think that's the thing that when you look at other qualifying cycles, they've had those friendlies to really kind of prop up also the World Cup qualifying. U.S. didn't have that because, now you have the Nations League.
Yep.
Nations League for UEFA, so you don't have these big European teams playing the United States. And even, Africa had the AFCON to worry about. So you don't have this line of friendlies that you can go, oh man, we really got to face some tough teams. I mean, everything you want to say about Jurgen Klinsmann, at least he got them to play some major European teams in Europe and got them some experience that, this team unfortunately has not been able to. They get that experience from their club teams. They play at an extremely high level. Many of these players do. At least the top players do. But you'd love to see it as a team. So really, it's just CONCACAF. They've played a bunch of CONCACAF. And you have to wonder, who knows who they're going to get to play. There's some talk about Argentina, maybe, but who knows what Argentina team is actually going to show up for those games. There's some talk of some other teams, but even then, it's just, man, it's unfortunate that you won't have this big run of games that you get to go and play these different teams and kind of get a flavor for different kinds of matchups for these players as a team. So it really will be stepping on the pitch in Qatar, and these first times you're meeting, say, Portugal or in Argentina or France, whoever it is you draw from pot one, and even, some of the African sides that you might play or the Asian sides you might play. That's going to be an interesting, if you wind up with a South American side, say an Ecuador, Uruguay. I mean, how is the team going to match up there? I mean, that's a whole new ballgame for Greg Berhalter. I mean, it's, as he was saying when he came in, this was the biggest week of his life, coaching life. But it's different to play in a MLS Cup or again, just play Gold Cup, play CONCACAF. This is a whole different deal, and it's going to be interesting what happens there. But I think another glaring thing for me is goalkeeper. And it's weird to say the United States has always been a great goalkeeping nation, and they definitely have some terrific goalkeepers. But I think we're starting to finally see what happens when Zack Steffen doesn't play.
Yep.
And he doesn't look confident. These last 2 games had not been, really the 3 games weren't really good for him. He just happened to not face a lot with Mexico. But I really, and I worry because the one guy we could turn to who knows when he's going to play with Arsenal, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to run into the same problem where he'll get a game here and there, but right now, I mean, you're not gonna take out that goalkeeper they have at Arsenal. He's playing too good, and Arsenal's on too good of a run right now. You're not gonna mess that up. So outside of an injury where Matt Turner gets to step in, it just you don't see it. So your two top goalkeepers are playing for some great teams in England, but will they get a lot of opportunities from here to the World Cup? You know, so you're looking at Ethan Horvath, who, to be fair, has played well. I thought we would see him in the Costa Rica game. Like, why not give him a run?
Mm-hmm.
Let him have a game because you never know. You might be needing him. You know, it just, well, again, we have to just see how that goes. But let's look ahead, Eric, to the World Cup draw on Friday. Like you said, 10 a.m. Eastern. I said the U.S. is going to be in pot 2 with Mexico. Now, a team from the same confederation cannot play each other in the group stage. So, the U.S. cannot play Mexico. They can't play Canada. They can't play Costa Rica.
Yeah, the only time is if you have two European teams in the
Right,
same
because
group.
they had the
But
most.
yeah, they have 13 spots in the 8 groups, but that's it.
Right. So, let's just go through this for the sake of saying that. Well, first of all, should just go ahead and finish the. This is how World Cup qualifying ended for CONCACAF here. Canada wound up being, due to goal difference, ahead of Mexico in the first spot with 28 points. Mexico number 2 with 28 points. U.S. 25 points in third, and then Costa Rica, of course, 25 points. But they're going to the playoff that'll be played in June against New Zealand. Panama with a respectable 21 points, actually beating Canada in their final game. And then Jamaica able to get some points over Honduras, which has been the worst team in CONCACAF, qualifying by a long mile to wind up in 6th over El Salvador with 11, El Salvador with 10, Honduras with the lowly 4. So who would have thought that?
I
Those
mean,
guys, those
going,
Catrachos have been great for how many cycles?
yeah, and correct me if I'm wrong, did not win a single game in
Did
the
not.
octagonal.
They lost 10 and drew 4.
Let that
Oof.
sink in, everybody. Just
Yeah. Negative
wow.
19 goal difference. Yeah. Oof. Not great. But yeah, that's how the final CONCACAF standings finished. Why didn't they? That's weird that they didn't have that. Kyle Larin winds up being the Golden Boot winner of CONCACAF World Cup qualifying with 13 goals. Jonathan David with 9 is second. And the U.S. is nowhere in the top 5. Tony Rugamas with 8 is third, and Cecile Waterman from Panama is 4th. So that, I mean, I guess it says something about the U.S. having just a lot more variety in their goals, but
So like my teams when I play top 11, yeah, I'll win the league, but I'm nowhere close to having a golden boot winner.
but
Maybe sometimes that's a good thing.
yeah, but it also shows that whole lack of a number 9 thing. You know, you
Mm-hmm.
don't have that out and out goal scorer that you say, okay, that's the the player we're going to get behind here. So here we go with the pots. Qatar, of course, they're the host. They're always in Group A, slot 1, pot 1. That's how that always goes for however long they've decided to do that. Brazil, Belgium, France, who are the current holders of the World Cup. Argentina, England, Spain, and Portugal, who did beat North Macedonia to qualify for the World Cup. So those are your pot 1 teams. Pot 2, United States, Mexico, Croatia, Uruguay, Switzerland, Germany, Denmark, Netherlands. So you can't face the Uruguay in the group stage, but they are in the same pot as the U.S. and Mexico. This is all by FIFA World Cup ranking, I should note, as well. So they had to do it that way due to the pandemic, and then shortening everything. So that's how things roll. Pot 3, Iran, Japan, Morocco, Serbia, Poland, South Korea, Senegal, and Tunisia. Canada would have been pot 3, but because they lost to Panama, they wound up in pot 4. Tunisia took their what you would have thought would have been their spot. So those are some of the potential matchups you could see for a U.S. there. You would hope that you don't draw Poland, I guess, but watch out with some of these African teams. Senegal, Morocco, not teams you want to play with there. But that being said, because Canada's in pot 4 now, man, watch out for any of these. Like, they could round up a group of death here. As you get Ecuador, who, after really having that like third place secured for most of qualifying, just decided to kind of whimper into the 4th spot. Ecuador, Saudi Arabia, Ghana, who were able to beat Nigeria due to the away goals rule. And then Cameroon with a thrilling finish over Algeria with a 124th minute goal after Algeria had scored like 4 minutes earlier, thinking they were going to the World Cup. No, sir. Denied at the last minute. So Cameroon in here. And then, of course, the 3 spots still have to be determined. Wales, Ukraine, Scotland. That game has to be those games have to be played. The Ukraine, Scotland, and then whoever wins goes on to play Wales. New Zealand, Costa Rica, obviously, we've already talked about. And then Peru awaits the winner of Australia and the United Arab Emirates. Should note that Peru played Australia last go around and won. So that being said, those are your pots. For at least you can't get Canada.
True.
So if you can avoid Poland, I think if you're the US, you're liking your chances for who you could get in a pot 3 or 4. And then pot 1, I mean, obviously it would be nice to get Qatar, but you had to play some of these big teams at some point, be able to test your mettle against some of these big teams at some point. Is there a team in pot 1 that you go, oh man, maybe I'm not so worried about them?
I'm going to be honest. Aside from Qatar, the main one that I would not want to face would definitely be Portugal because they're stacked.
But I mean, the way they play, they don't play like this uber talented team that just has they do have all these great players, but they play pretty much like around Ronaldo, and then everybody kind of shifts and moves, and they don't play this like, you're expecting them to play like Manchester City. You're expecting them to
Mm-hmm.
play like that with all these tremendous players. They don't play that way. They play very defense first, kind of game, and you feel like they're a little bit vulnerable sometimes.
They can be, but even more so than that, you'd be in some ways to say France, even though they just won the Nations League, but same roughly right kind of next door to them. I get all of the hype surrounding Belgium, and especially at the time that they were their peak. But at the same time, looking at them now, it's like they, in my mind, are just as vulnerable to me as you were mentioning about Portugal. Not to mention, it would be sweet revenge for that round of 16 match many moons
Exactly.
ago.
Would be. Not to mention they have this ability to like get through the group stage, but then when it comes to where they're supposed to shine,
Mm-hmm.
they wind up not doing so in the knockout stage. So, could they have a slip up when you think this might be the last hurrah for that golden generation? Maybe Belgium, even though they are the number one ranked team in the world, maybe they wouldn't be such a, you know, I don't know that I want to play Brazil. I don't know that I want to play Argentina. I don't know that I want to play um, Spain or maybe England. There's always that fun thing with the U.S. and England playing each other. Let's not forget what happened in 2010 as well. Much
Yes. 1-1. Never forget that one.
much different England team, of course, obviously now, but yeah, it's gonna be a fun thing to go and finally have that draw on Friday and know who you're gonna be playing. You can Greg Berhalter can already start the homework when it comes to the draw there. Um, but yeah, it's just we'll have to see. Obviously, we have to wait a while to finally get who is going to be those last few pot four teams there and make up the rest of that form of 32. But I kind of already talked about it, but heartbreak city for a lot of these the Africa Cup. I mean, you go around and you say for the most part a lot of the big stars are gonna be there, but one that won't be Mo Salah. He got knocked out again by Senegal.
And
Uh,
again, it was to the point where with Liverpool fans, you had to choose which main man would you want to see at the World Cup because there was only one of them. It wound up being Sadio Mane.
wound up being Sadio Mane. Lasers everywhere while taking a penalty. Probably not the best of circumstances at all there, but yeah, I mean, you hate to see it. Unfortunately, we won't have Mo Salah in the World Cup. We won't have Zlatan in the World Cup. Sweden didn't make it. But you have to wonder how much Zlatan really would have played at that point. Nigeria, after all the money they invested into their team and everything, did not make it. Ghana makes it instead. Algeria, no Mahrez as well as Algeria doesn't make it. Um, we'll have to see will Ukraine be able to make the miracle happen, or will it be Scotland, who we haven't seen in the World Cup in a long time,
I
making
mean,
it?
one Cinderella story versus the fan base that is the Tartan Army.
Yeah. And then, of course, will we get another heroic performance from uh, Gareth Bale, who doesn't show up for Real Madrid, but when it comes to putting on those whale colors, uh, the Wales colors, he is all down. And as he said, he would go into the ground for this country. It will be interesting to see if Wales gets to complete the heroic feat there as well. And then You would imagine Peru and Costa Rica would be the ones to get through, but man, perhaps upsets brewing there.
Especially more so Peru and Australia, because you figure with Australia in being in Group B in the final round of Asian qualifying, you could practically have locked them in and getting that fifth place playoff.
I don't know about that. Group B was really tough.
It was, and this is my point. They were in that Group B, and that's why I say when it came to the playoff, out of the myriad of teams they could have faced in Group A, it's like, who is really going to be in competition? That's why it's like, all right, I see those matchups they're in. And the man who is at times my disembodied voice, I am his Brian Espinoza. I love you. We talked about Peru. I'm giving you another shout out, but be careful. Be careful.
My best friend at work, he is also he's not Peruvian, but his daughter is half Peruvian, his wife is Peruvian. So he goes for the Peru national team because obviously Puerto Rico is not going to make it to the World Cup anytime soon. And so for him, that's his team. Aside from the US, so he's really, really hoping that he's going to be seeing Peru in the World Cup, and I hope for him. And always good when you can get another Commonwealth team, even though in 2010 the Commonwealth teams did not do well. So we'll see if that changes now that it's not in Europe, it's in Qatar, which when we get outside of Europe, we do tend to have some of these wild card, CONCACAF teams, the South America teams do better.
Yeah.
Will an Asian team do well, considering, especially some of these like Iran or something like that? Surprise, considering you're in that area of the world. I mean, Saudi Arabia, could they pull off something? So would be interesting to see how that all shapes out when we get to the World Cup, of course. And will the hosts play their part? And usually what we see the hosts do, which is at least make it out of the group stage, or at least make it difficult for the teams in their group. And considering, what we've seen of them, they've been pretty decent. So, should be an interesting one. But again, kind of thankfully only have to wait a few days for that draw. And then at least we'll know what teams are going to be where. Still got to wait, man, 8 months. Crazy to think. Usually by the time we're finishing qualifying, it's only a few months you got to wait. It's a long way. You'll be thinking about almost Thanksgiving dinner if you're in the United States when that World Cup starts. So, but in a way, it's kind of like, phew, don't have to worry about it. The U.S. is in. Now it's all about just kind of getting ready, hoping everybody gets healthy. You have the best team you can have available. Some players get in form. And now, after Friday, what is your schedule like in the morning, Eric? What is?
Depends on if I'm awake. If I can be up at that time, maybe, since I don't have a whole bunch to do Thursday night. Get to bed early, set my alarm, be up for the draw at 10 o'clock. I can do my best, because ideally I don't like sleeping in until 2 in the afternoon all the time. So
Right. I don't want to say that, because every time I try to plan for let's do it right after, for some reason it takes longer than it should. Not on my end, but also something will happen with that draw where they push it to where it lasts way longer than it should. That thing should be like 15 minutes, and they're somehow going to make it last an hour, which would make it impossible for me because I have to leave at 11:15 at the latest to get to work at 12. So I'll probably be able to watch it, But as far as I'd love to be able to record something before I go off to work, and then I'm not available till 10 o'clock at night. But last, it would just have to be that way because it's just not feasible, honestly. But we'll be back on Saturday morning. By the time the audio listeners hear it, probably by the time you video watchers will also be able to see it. Our thoughts on the World Cup draw, some early, way too early predictions on who might actually win it and everything else. As before they even get close to thinking about kicking the ball, we'll have to make some decisions on who we think will win things and all that. It's the fun part, right? See how far you are from those predictions when you get to the actual teams like coming into camp and everything else. But all right, Erik, I mean, that's it. World Cup qualifying is over for at least CONCACAF anyway. Still got some games to play. We'll be rooting for Costa Rica so you can have the 4 CONCACAF teams in there. And then we will see how things go. As far as what we're going to do now that we pretty much know that U.S. men's national team, whenever they play, it's going to be very sporadic. We obviously will be covering U.S. women's national team as well. They have their game against Uzbekistan. They've already named the squad. We might talk about that on the next episode of a show, which this week might benefit us for it to be on Sunday, and then we'll go from there. The idea is to go back to the original way we were doing the show when we first brought it back, which is more of a topic oriented, and not so much trying to. We tried it, and the first 2 weeks of MLS, it just wasn't working. I was sitting there watching hours of highlights and then forgetting half the stuff I was watching, and then realizing that for you guys can get that information in seconds. You don't need let's go back to talking about things, and we can talk about our teams and everything else, and kind of maybe put a U.S. men's national team watch on some of the players and keep track of them and things like that. But yeah, so we will cover U.S. women's national team. They do have their own version of qualifying, the CONCACAF W Championship in July. 8 teams. It's going to be played in Mexico. 8 teams, 2 groups of 4, and then the teams that get out of the group are the ones that qualify, and the winner of the entire thing qualifies for the Olympics. So, yeah, so that will be fun when we get to that as well. And yeah, so even though after the draw, we're really gonna kind of not be talking about international stuff, we'll definitely be getting into club things and following what we can, talking about those topics, and we'll still have our Manchester United moment and all that kind of stuff. We'll see what that team is, but it feels like an eternity since they played now.
Yeah, because it's not like there's anything going on whatsoever at Manchester
Yeah, they just signed
United.
Bruno until like 2027 now, so we'll see how that goes. But all right, until the next time we see you on Saturday for that World Cup draw talk. Later, everybody.
Peace.